So this is a hot day. It's only the first week in August and the temperature is going to reach 31 degrees. And we are in this greenhouse, which is quite warm. And I'm going to show you simple pruning of these commercial trees. So this is a Chinese privet. I think the botanical name, they call it Ligustrum sinensis. This is another tree. This one is the leptospermum, and this is Taxus. I don't know what variety of Taxus this is because there's so many types of Taxus. This, they've called it Taxus media. I'm not sure about that. It looks like an ordinary Taxus baccata. So although they're commercial trees, there are different approaches to pruning. The simplest one is this, which is an S shape. And of course, all we have to do when you get a situation like this, by the way, the Chinese privet is often sold as an indoor bonsai, but in the summer, it is best to grow them outdoors. In the winter, if you grow them indoors, keep it in a very, very cool room, otherwise they will suffer. Before I do any pruning, if you home in closely, we'll show you how clever the Chinese growers are. Because this is a thin trunk, which was really a branch made up to make the apex, they used a double trunk to make it look thick. If I cut it off completely, it will look very thin indeed. So I will keep it, although that's a dead trunk. It makes the trunk look interesting, but technically speaking, that trunk doesn't need to be there. But, you know, sometimes nothing in the world is perfect, so I will leave it there because it is the better part of simply cutting it off completely. So I will prefer to keep that. So again, as I said, simplest pruning is this. Keep it to the original conical shape. And as long as you do that, your bonsai will always look smart. So this is not rocket science, very, very simple. Very simple. Go around all around the tree and keep that conical shape. And as long as you keep it watered, it will grow well. So how simple is that? It's surprising, although I say it's simple, there are many customers who bring these trees back to me and they say, oh, how do I prune it? That is how you prune it. As simple as that. Okay, so that is the first one. Let me show you another one, because not all of them are that simple. So some of them are more difficult than others. So let's look at this one. Let me sweep this off. Now this leptospermum is a New Zealand plant. Again, very clever how they've done it. Lovely S shape. So again, in a situation like this, believe it or not, is just, I think, 6 weeks of growth in the summer. Again, if you want to make it into cuttings, you can propagate these. They all propagate very easily from cuttings. So again, I'm aiming to make like a conical shape, nothing fancy. So why do we leave these things to grow strong? We grow it strong to feed into the tree. And when we've done our bit, we will then bring it back to shape. So that's a quick, short back and sides. If you did nothing else, that's better than not doing anything at all. But then if you want to refine it even more, you can do a bit of wiring to take these branches out to this side. Inward growing branches you don't want. Any crossing branches you don't want. But don't scalp it so much that you end up with nothing. See, that's an upward growing branch. I'll take that off. But for most people, these are just decorative house plants. They're not so bothered about wiring. But if you want to practice your wiring, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. So all these little ones are not needed. If you want to grow this one into a bigger branch, you can. But that's the obvious branch you can wire. and you can wire to that. So let me just show you, just to prove a point, what I would do to that one. After all, this is a hobby, so if you want to enjoy your hobby more and do a little bit of simple wiring, I would wire this branch and then link it to another branch. That's a bit of anchor there. Go around the trunk. Practice your wiring. The only way to improve is by practicing. They are slightly brittle, the branches, so again, you will learn from experience what is brittle and what is not brittle. You see this branch which is sprouting up, that's breaking the line, so I take that off. And I don't want the pad to be so untidy. This is going that way, should really be going that way. So you see I've emphasized that triangular shape even more, but come next year I could even change the front. Don't do tight wiring, just guide it along. If I want to retain this front, I can take the branch this way. And that's an upward pointing one, I don't want that. But the main thing is not to scalp it so that you end up with virtually nothing. So I've gone a bit easy on it, you see, not doing too much. So for most amateurs, I would say that is perfectly adequate. Don't do more than that. And that is very presentable. I know I could do more, but I promise you it will end up as a skeleton and it won't look good. So the silhouette there is looking good. So that's another relatively simple one. Now, how about one of these? I did some the other day and I regret doing it because it would have made a beautiful YouTube video. So let me take some of these labels off. Now, what makes this difficult is that this branch here, if you look closely, the S shape here is very, very nice, very nicely made. But this thing here, like, spoils the composition of the tree. Inward growing one I don't want. Sign of a healthy tree is that you have a lot of growth, but sometimes you don't want too much of a good thing. Okay, so this one is very low, this one here, because they're so low, let's get rid of that. I am determined to use this part, which will make a lovely twin trunk composition. It could have been two young plants planted together when they were very, very young, and it was left to grow, and they never bothered to take it off. But you can see why the grower left that, because it forms a nice conical shape that way. But let's concentrate on making this a very nice shape. Now this branch here clearly is too thick to bend, but it forms a nice pad. So I'm not going to try and even attempt to bend that. That would be impossible, but it forms a nice pad, so I'll leave it there. Do I need this? I've got to ask myself, do I need this? Probably not, because I have this space to contend with. Some of these at the back, it's far too much there. So these two are fairly similar in thickness, so I put a wire across those two and wire these two to form a usable pad. Again, remember to use the correct gauge of wire to bend it. When there are short lengths of wire, I should be really using my recycled wire, but no matter. I must say that this yew is a very fine foliage one. The ordinary English yew has got much thicker foliage. I've got that here, that there. So you keep looking at the tree to see the outline, see how the pads are sitting. So then I ask myself, do I need these? Do I need that? I know if I want a fuller tree, I can use that. Let's use that and see what happens. Again, there's a very thick branch there, which is like superfluous. I get rid of that, spoiling the line. So I've got two thin branches there. So let's use a very thin wire to bend this. So to do that, so I'm going to go up the trunk to stabilize the wire. Do a little anchor there. Then go up the trunk once more, and then come up to, maybe I can come out here now this way. The yews being such rapid growers, there's no need to wire too tight in case you cause it to make ugly wire marks. The wire marks is much misunderstood because I sometimes leave the wire permanently on the tree to get a nice density and a gnarled looking trunk, but that's a separate subject altogether. I will come back to it on another occasion. So I've got that effect now. I've got to tidy some of the top there. I can open that up like that. So let's see what we can do. So those two are similar. Always looking for similar thickness pairs to wire together. Okay, just look at the detail there while I find the appropriate wire. Okay, a slight difference in thickness makes all the difference. That's 2.5 and this is 2. I can't emphasize enough the importance of developing your wiring skills. Unless you develop good wiring technique and skill, you will always struggle to make decent looking bonsai. Once you understand good wiring, you will progress very fast. Now that one doesn't seem to be necessary because I've got enough there. Okay, I won't progress too far. So that tree on its own looks very credible. So if I use the famous bag trick or the paper handkerchief trick, see, that would be quite nice as a bonsai. But should I cut the other one off? I don't want to cut it off. You see, this is perfect as it is. But rather than cut that off, let's see what we can make out of this one. I always like to go with the flow. That means create as I go along. As I go along, I keep creating and see what is the outcome. I never like to foreclose all the options. So, and by that I mean, as I do a bit of wiring, let me see what shape emerges, and then I proceed to the next step. Okay, so I'll say something in a minute, because simply turning the tree this way while I'm wiring has given me another dimension. It looks better from this side. You know, I was constantly looking at this side, but why am I looking at that side when this side is as nice? So this is where you've always got to keep an open mind. Don't just say, because I decided that was the front, I will have to stick with that as the front. This could make as nice a front. So this would make a very nice front. So as I say, the situation has changed simply because I kept an open mind. And I think that is sufficient. If I wanted to be pedantic, this is ungainly. It is spoiling the line of that little tree. So if I just show you what exactly I mean, if you take that off, this could make a very nice balanced tree, like that. So let me do method of elimination and cut a little bit at a time. That's a very ugly, stubby bit. That doesn't make it look so straight. See, that fills that space, fills that gap. So that would be good. And should I want to revert to this, see, this side is okay, but not so nice. So you can see how I've approached this, you know. I've managed to keep that rather than to get rid of it, and I will still end up with a very credible tree. This one, if you wanted to be pedantic, with very thick wire, you can bend it a little more, but I don't think it spoils the line. So let's leave it like that. So I've shown you 3 examples of pruning, from the very simple to more complicated. So these are typical sort of trees you can buy from dealers and other nurseries. We sell them as well. They're very popular lines, and we sell them on our e-commerce shop. But you've got to keep them in good condition. So I hope you enjoyed that video.